in the 06010.
Welcome into the Fantasy Focus Football Podcast. We are presented by Geico. It is Monday, the concluding day of Week 1, as we start to turn the page towards Week 2. Field Yates, Matthew Berry hanging out with you. Of course, Stephania from her palatial estate, as always, and Daniel Dopp hanging out with us for the upcoming hour. And it was so good. So good to have football back in our lives yesterday. Of course, we've got two more games tonight, both on ESPN. We've got 7 o'clock and 10:15 kickoffs. Cannot wait for those. And Matthew, there was probably some fantasy heartbreak and some agony and some disappointment yesterday. But you know what? It was just so great to have football back. We'll spare you all of our personal failures we made.
I was planning on doing the entire hour about it.
Okay. Well, I mean,
do you know how many leagues I faced Calvin Ridley in? Very upsetting.
Really? That many? Interesting. We'll get into that later on. We've got so much to get into. So we're going to dive right into it, and we're going to start with all of the injuries from Week 1. And one of the unfortunate parts of football is that injuries are real. So we're going to get right into the injuries. We're going to start with Stephania. And Stephania, unfortunately, the Indianapolis Colts are unlikely to have Marlon Mack for some period of time. What do you know about Marlon Mack, who left the game with the always scary non-contact injury? Looked like his ankle at first. What's the latest on Marlon Mack?
Well, it did look like his ankle field, and you saw when he walked off the field, it was very flat-footed, right? He really couldn't push off, and that's exactly what happens when you have an Achilles injury. Frank Reich did confirm that it is an Achilles injury for Marlon Mack, and he's going for further testing today. This is one of those injuries where they know upon clinical examination that if he tore his Achilles, you can feel it, you can tell right away. The imaging just offers further detail. So unfortunately, this looks like the end of the season for Marlon Mack.
Okay, stay right there, Stephania. We're coming back to you. You're going to be very busy to start the show. But Matthew, this is sad news for Marlon Mack, a guy in a contract year, a player the Colts value tremendously. But I don't ever want to make light of an injury. From a fantasy football perspective, though, with one less back, the Colts backfield obviously has fewer options to turn to, which I think means basically that Jonathan Taylor and Nyheim Hines could all of a sudden become very, very busy.
Very, very busy. If you had started the season with this knowledge, meaning that, had
happened in preseason,
had this injury happened in the preseason, for example, and so you knew going into the season that the two primary ball carriers for the Colts were going to be Jonathan Taylor and Nyheim Hines. Jonathan Taylor would have gone as a top 15 running back. There would have been arguments about who's the top rookie. Is it CEH or Jonathan Taylor? I think it still would have been CEH.
Agreed.
But it actually would have been a conversation because, again, we know how run heavy we think the Colts want to be. We love that offensive line. Obviously, yesterday was kind of a weird game for the Colts. I think they got
They got Minshew'd.
They got Minshew'd. I like that as a verb. I like that very much. And they did. They did get Minshew'd. But honestly, look, this is an offense that is going to run the ball and run the ball effectively. And so Taylor, who was so great in college, and the only downside to his fantasy value was, of course, the presence of Marlon Mack. And with that removed for the year, Jonathan Taylor, I think, is right there in that Todd Gurley, David Johnson, Melvin Gordon, kind of that, 14 to 16 range. I would put Raheem Mostert there as well now in terms of running backs. And, like who would you rather have for the rest of the season right now? Jonathan Taylor or Nick Chubb?
I still think it's Nick Chubb, but it's a healthy conversation.
But it's a conversation.
Sure.
I mean, that's what I'm talking about here. And in terms of Nyheim Hines, I am sure, Field, he is going to be one of the leaders of your waiver wire column tomorrow.
That's right. He is maybe number 2 on my early list of waiver ads, a guy who had 15 touches for 73 yards and 2 touchdowns. Very good pass catcher. We knew that much.
Very good pass catcher, heavily involved, and they gave him more looks in the red zone, which was interesting. Again, think about Phillip Rivers, who loves having a pass-catching running back in the red zone with him to dump off and somebody that he trusts in pass protection. So I think Nyheim Hines will be more than just a third down back going forward.
A pair of stars yesterday did not have very star-like efforts, and they also got banged up. Stephania, we think it's more about just bad days, but what do you know about both Michael Thomas and George Kittle?
Michael Thomas gets injured when his teammate, Alvin Kamara, rolls up on his ankle, but apparently he wasn't letting people examine it later in the locker room, kind of avoiding getting looked at. He did walk off the field on his own. I mean, these are initially good signs, right? But until you know more detail, you really don't know the severity. And George Kittle had a left knee issue, appeared to hyperextend it. As Kyle Shanahan said after, they don't tell him much about the injury at the time. They told him he was good to go in the second half, so they allowed him to play. But if you were watching the game, he just wasn't the same guy in the second half. Remember, last year, he hyperextended the same knee, and it was problematic for him off and on throughout the season. He is going to get it examined today. I'm told they don't think it's anything major structurally, but we will have further information after he gets looked at today.
And by his own account, George Kittle says after the game, "I feel fantastic." Now, that's a player, and they're not doctors for a reason. So let's be clear here, Matthew. Both Michael Thomas and, we need a lot more information on either of these before we get super concerned. The most concerning part is just that you counted on them being, potentially the best player in your lineup this week, and especially Michael Thomas was not that. I mean, 149 catches last year. He had 3 for 17 yards yesterday. It didn't matter. They still, they took care of the Bucs.
I think it's too early to hit the panic button on either guy. I will just say that, and all football players are tough. I mean, let's face it. Like, I get hangnails, and I'm like, I don't know if I can come to the show today. But George Kittle is among the toughest of the tough.
Yep.
If anyone can gut through it, it'll be George Kittle. And as for Michael Thomas, he's been so good for so long. I know they had the addition of, Emmanuel Sanders. I guess I'm just not worried yet. It's one game.
Let's keep an eye on these injuries if we get more information. But for now, things looking like they'll bounce back just fine in week 2. Devontae Parker for the Dolphins, Stephania, he came into this game with no injury designation for the Dolphins on their final report, but he was banged up during the week, and then he gets banged up again during this game against the Patriots. Was it the same injury that recurred? What do you know about Devontae Parker?
Not a lot of detail yet, but there is concern from Cam Wolfe, our fellow colleague who covers the team, that he will be out for a little bit. You got to imagine that the team is concerned that he came into this week with a hamstring injury and he exits with a hamstring injury. Devontae Parker, who finally put a season together of all 16 games last year, and we talked about this yesterday, that there was a worry that soft tissue injuries, which plagued him in the first 4 years of his career, could be a thing that haunts him. Not great to already have this be a problem that could cost him some time.
Preston Williams.
Do you think, Stephania, just a quick follow there, do you think it was his hamstring that was bothering him, or did he have a case of Gilmore-itis?
Well, they're calling it his hamstring, but you'd have to talk to him.
Yeah. Fair enough. Understood.
He did get the best of Stephon Gilmore. Stephon Gilmore had one bad game in 2019, and it was Devontae Parker.
100%. That's true.
Parker finishes with 4 for 47. Preston Williams was quiet yesterday, 2 for 41 on 30 routes run for Preston Williams. If Parker misses time, I presume that you would only count on Preston Williams seeing an uptick. I mean, you can't really trust any other Dolphins wide receiver.
Let's be honest. Fitzy looked bad. If Fitzy looked like, Fitz tragic, not Fitz magic there. I will say this. I will say that traditionally, Bill Belichick has had a lot of quarterbacks numbers over the years, and Fitzpatrick is one of them in a big way. And so, yes, Preston Williams, although I think some deeper names for your waiver wire column. Look, if you watched Fantasy Football Now Sunday morning, Jeff Darlington talked up Isaiah Ford.
Dan Graziano, but yes.
Oh, sorry, Dan Graziano. Sorry, yep. Darlington was at Saints Buccaneers. But, Dan Graziano talked up Isaiah Ford, and Dan is a hardcore fantasy player himself. And so that's somebody for deeper leagues.
Yeah.
But my expectation is, if I was sort of charting out the targets for the Dolphins going forward, if Parker were to miss time, it would be Preston Williams and Mike Gesicki in that order.
Okay, a couple more injuries here, and a note on the waiver wire column. This year, my goal is to really give you the names you actually need. I'm not as concerned about guys that might be useful potentially in a 16 or larger. We'll have more conversations tomorrow.
You're the author. I'm just saying, I think people play sometimes in deeper leagues, and I'm just saying,
they do.
Isaiah Ford is somebody that, as Graziano said, has been the talk of camp and has flashed at times last year.
You can have him on your roster.
I have him in a dynasty league.
Okay, nice.
How many percentage of leagues does he need to be rostered in at the end of this week, Matthew Berry? Isaiah Ford
in ESPN standard leagues, none whatsoever.
Okay,
but I don't believe everyone plays in a 10-team league.
I also do not believe that. We are on the same page.
There are people that play in dynasty leagues and deeper leagues and super flex leagues.
You know what? You know where he goes?
I'm just putting that name on people's radar in case they missed it. I thought that was an interesting nugget from Dan Graziano, talking about the fact that the name he kept hearing throughout camp from the Dolphins was Isaiah Ford.
I just threw him into the bucket of late round flyers, which I understand they're no longer late round flyers, They're deep league waiver ads. We can get a new bucket. I know, I hear you.
Fine.
Le'Veon Bell had some concerning signs coming into this season. Him and his coach seem to be quibbling. He obviously has lost a step. He has not had a 20-plus yard run since Matthew had hair. Stephania,
Wow.
What?
I'm sitting here minding my own business, and I get thrown under the bus with Le'Veon Bell.
Sorry, my bad.
You know what?
Since
It's been
LeBron
long.
had hair.
It hasn't
I can't
been
wait
that
to do
long
a diss
ago.
track on Le'Veon Bell's new rap album about you.
Stephania, what do you know about Le'Veon and his injury?
Sorry, I was laughing at the diss track still. Look,
I will
the
record
quibbling
that.
is not going to get the quibbling between Le'Veon Bell and Adam Gase is not going to get any better after what happened yesterday. He has a hamstring issue, goes in at halftime, comes out with his leg wrapped, and somehow gets back in the game for the third quarter, plays 5 snaps, and clearly is not himself. So ultimately, Adam Gase says after the game that he's not happy that he allowed him to come back in. And you have to think all the signs are there. That means he's not going to allow him anywhere near the field until he feels comfortable that he's ready. Remember, earlier, before the season started, there was some question about Le'Veon Bell's health, and then he tweeted about there's nothing wrong with his hamstrings, I believe. So stay tuned for this. I think there's more drama than even beyond the injury.
You know what? I'm going to put myself out there to potentially be old takes exposed later on.
Sure.
But there are things that happen after week 1, and we overreact to them. And there are things that are happen after week 1, and like you accurately react to them.
Yeah.
If I have Le'Veon Bell on my roster right now, and I could get anybody that I could trust using, even in a flex option weekly, I'll do it right now. Right now, right this second. It feels
100%,
combustible.
100%.
Get me out of the
agree with
business
you.
of Le'Veon Bell.
100% agree with you.
I was already out.
I have 0 shares of Le'Veon Bell this
Same.
year. And I like in a lot of leagues. I'm in a lot of leagues, and I went 0 for 16 in terms of Le'Veon Bell because just some bad vibes out of New York. And I will say this: I think a name for your waiver wire column. I get it. We're catering to 10-team leagues here, but just something to think in mind because whatever. Josh Adams, you remember him? He
course,
was with
yeah,
Philadelphia.
yeah.
He came in towards the end yesterday, and you're going to have Frank Gore, but LaMichael Pirine, their 4th-round draft pick this year, they like him a lot. Now he got banged up. He's got an ankle injury, so he's probably not going to be ready for a couple of weeks. But I'm just telling you, like, if you are in a league where you can just grab someone and stash him, if you have like a lot of IR spots, I think there is a better than fighting chance that at some point this year, LaMichael Pirine is the starting running back of the Jets and could be a good fit for Adam Gase. Obviously, he was drafted into that offense. I think there's a very good chance that, maybe not very good chance, but I'm with you, Field. In fact, I think there is a chance, certainly, that Le'Veon Bell gets dealt, that this gets worse before it gets better, that there's a contending team that they even eat some salary and they say, you know what, just take Le'Veon Bell out of the building and he goes to a contender or a team that needs a running back.
In Sunday Night Football, Stephania, Blake Jarwin, another player that dealt with a non-contact injury. What's that mean for him and the rest of this season?
The dreaded ACL, and our colleague Edward are reporting that they suspect he has a torn ACL and MRI plan to confirm today. This after a 4-year extension. They had plans for him. You know that I liked him as a breakout player, but it appears that his season, unfortunately, is over.
Yeah, too bad there. And he was not a player that was being drafted inside the top 10 for tight ends, not a guy that was necessarily a fixture of lineups, but you may have had him in a deeper league. And
I have him in the War Room League. He was definitely a trendy fantasy football sleeper for deeper leagues. So it's a tough break. It's a very tough break. But I have to tell you that and I know you'll get into tight ends in your waiver wire column tomorrow in terms of some guys to pick up. Certainly Dallas Goedert, my guy, Logan Thomas. Like there's some guys out there, but CeeDee Lamb. I mean, I just think this an even larger increase in target share for CeeDee Lamb. I think there's going to be 3 very fantasy viable pass catchers on the Cowboys, and you already knew Cooper and Gallup, but CeeDee Lamb, I thought, looked ready for primetime last night.
He sure did. That was fun to watch. Maybe not so much for Cowboys fans. Stephania with great injury intel. We'll have more updates tomorrow because we suspect coaches will give us a bit more information later on today. But did you know that right now, Geico is offering an extra 15% credit on car, motorcycle, and RV policies? That's 15% on the top of the money Geico could already save you. So what are you waiting for? Your dog to make you breakfast in bed with Belgian waffles and a fresh fruit compote? As nice as that sounds, that's probably never going to happen. But at least there's never been a better time to switch to Geico. Save an extra 15% when you switch by October 7th. Visit geico.com to learn more.
You know, when it comes to scoring great hires for your business, you may be up against some obstacles, like lots of applicants, or difficulty finding the right ones for your job, or finding the time while running your business, plus trying to ensure workplace safety. That's why you need ZipRecruiter on your team. No matter the industry, healthcare to manufacturing to business services, ZipRecruiter makes hiring faster and easier. And now you can try it for free at ZipRecruiter.com/06010. First, when you post a job on ZipRecruiter, it gets sent out to over 100 top job sites. Then, ZipRecruiter's powerful matching technology hustles for you to find the people with the right experience for your job and invites them to apply. In fact, check out this stat. 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day.
First day?
First day. So add ZipRecruiter to your roster to help you win the hiring game. Try ZipRecruiter for free. Go to ZipRecruiter.com/06010. That's ZipRecruiter.com/06010. ZipRecruiter.com/06010. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire.
Let's get into some of the best from week one in terms of storylines. And we talked about David Johnson on Thursday night, and he had a great start for the Houston Texans.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, the trade kind of looked like pretty decent. And then DeAndre Hopkins did some DeAndre Hopkins stuff. You know what DeAndre Hopkins did?
What did he do?
He had a career-high 14 catches for 151 yards. He finished as wide receiver 4, despite not scoring a touchdown this week, Matthew. We got into kind of a testy argument about DeAndre Hopkins before the season began. But
Did we?
Yeah, we did.
You and I?
Yeah, you don't remember?
No,
You told me he lacked upside relative to someone like Tyreek
Did
Hill.
I?
Yeah, we can play the tape if you need
No,
to.
no,
Anyways,
no. I don't think I ever said he lacked upside. What I
compared to
did say- here's what I
Tyreek
said.
Hill. Correct.
Huh?
The point was that, you said he didn't
No.
have the upside of someone like Tyreek Hill.
I did not say he lacked the upside. Here's what I think. I would be shocked if I said that. Here's what I did say. I'll like this. I'll totally cop to. I copped to the fact that I had him ranked number 5, and that I had that. I think
Your bigger concern
my
was
bigger concern was the fact that he was going to a new team, new quarterback,
Continuity.
new system, and that he was missing practice. And was it because he was being kept fresh for the season, or was it contract concerns? He ultimately ends up getting paid. But I basically said I would prefer Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, Michael Thomas, and Julio Jones, same system, same quarterback, same offensive plays, than a guy going there. And so I had DeAndre Hopkins at 5. Look, all 4 of those guys had good week ones, but Hopkins was nothing short of special. Clearly, the concerns that I had over getting on the same page with Kyler Murray, completely overblown. I was totally wrong with that. I think the argument you and I had was we argued that Hopkins had a better floor. Hopkins and Hill had more, potential spike weeks. Obviously, this this particular week, Nuke went off.
Another board bet win for me. I'm pretty sure it was a week one. It was a week 1 bet. It was a week 1 bet. Yeah.
I 100% will fully admit to being wrong on
Okay.
it needs time
We don't need to-
times to connect.
We don't
I had him
need
at
to
5.
spend. Well,
I will say this. Other people had him lower.
There was a theme. It was a theme that I think, and maybe this is cherry picking, but I would say that speaking generally, there wasn't a lot of no preseason rust that I saw yesterday.
No,
the offenses were spectacular. But let's just get into the tentacles of this trade. DeAndre Hopkins, I don't think we need to belabor the point. You had him at wide receiver 5. I had him at 3 going into this season. So we feel really good about DeAndre Hopkins after just 1 week. And his quarterback, Kyler Murray, delivered on expectations too.
The only thing I would say but quickly on Hopkins is that as massive his target share was, all of a sudden Larry Fitzgerald and Christian Kirk, and a lot of people had Christian Kirk as a breakout this year, just disappeared. And so I don't think there's a pass catcher you can trust on Arizona until we see it. Next week, Hopkins is the only guy you're starting. I would not be starting Fitzgerald or Christian Kirk or Dan Arnold, the tight end, who's in a lot of deep leagues. Yeah.
But I'm optimistic on Christian Kirk, I'll be honest with you. I think there's a chance he sort of finds his footing this season. Kyler, though, was spectacular. Kyler Murray, 91 rushing yards, plus a touchdown. That was a career high, and he actually had more rushing yards. He took a couple of kneel downs late in the game as they were killing the clock. Might have lost you a couple decimal points, but he looked tremendous. 26 of 40 as a passer, 230 passing yards against a really good 49ers defense. One of the debates that we had going into this week was, hey, if you have Kyler Murray, would you consider adding somebody like Cam Newton off the waiver wire and starting him over Kyler Murray for 1 week, or maybe Ben Roethlisberger? And the reality, Matthew, is that if you had done that, it may have paid off. I think Cam was within, maybe he was a point or 2 behind or ahead of Kyler Murray, so it wouldn't have been
what Ben does tonight.
Right, it wasn't a bad strategy play, but this is more to me about the affirmation that Kyler Murray's got potential. I mean, he's a dark horse MVP candidate in real football this year.
1,000%. We talked about who could be this year's Lamar Jackson, and Kyler Murray's the obvious answer here. The concern is obviously he was going as a top 5 fantasy quarterback anyway. I mean,
Right.
I think I had him at 4 going into the season. He was going anywhere from QB4 to QB6, generally in drafts, in that Deshaun Watson, Russell Wilson, Dak Prescott range. Yeah. I guess, 3 to 7, that range. But yeah, I mean, Kyler showed why he was the number 1 overall pick in the actual NFL draft and why so many people, you and I included, were high on him coming into the season.
We've already discussed sort of the Texans side of that trade after Thursday night's game, but the big winners seem to be both David Johnson and also Will Fuller. Aaron Rodgers, Matthew, came into the season with really tepid expectations, right? He was not being drafted. We said going into the year, you know what? I'm not drafting him as my starting quarterback. I'm just not doing it.
Yeah.
Yesterday, I think he listened to us. He listened to the podcast. There's no doubt in my mind.
He was on my preseason hate list.
Mm-hmm.
He was on my week 1 hate list. I think through week 1, I mean, we'll see what happens tonight, and obviously a long way to go.
Shame bell.
Are you shame?
Shame
Call
bell.
a shame, Matthew Berry. Call a shame. Shame.
There.
Did you bring
Shame.
that bell out just for this? Or has that just been sitting there for the entire month?
I
and
actually
hadn't
brought it
noticed
out for my Leonard Fournette call, but I felt like this might be not a bad spot to use.
Yeah,
it.
fair.
That's fair.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah, good job. 100%. Listen, so I'm completely owning this, right? So
Good.
on my preseason hate list, on my week 1 hate list, obviously wrong. He was a monster. 364 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, over 30 fantasy points. Here's what I would say, though. I would make the call again. Aaron Rodgers was bad all of last year. Like, I think he had 9 different games last year where he was QB 20 or worse for the week, right? In his previous 4 games against the Minnesota Vikings,
Yep.
he had 4 touchdown passes total in 4 games, right? And so we knew there had been some changes to that Viking secondary, but we didn't think it was going to be a massive fall off, and it was. And we had yet to see Marquez Valdes-Scantling or Allen Lazard step up in a significant way. Well, yesterday they did. I would have made the same call. I would have been wrong again, but I'm just saying, like, I think the process was right. The result was wrong, and I completely copped to getting the call wrong. But I'm not going to apologize for making the call. I would have made it again. Having said that, the question becomes now, okay, is Aaron Rodgers back to being a bad man, or is this just the Viking secondary? I think it's more about the Viking secondary being bad and exploitable.
3 things went right yesterday for Aaron Rodgers. First of all, I mean, he played awesome. I don't want to discredit him. Right?
1,000% he did.
The Packers' number 2 wide receivers, and I understand I'm saying plural, but they got good contributions from Allen Lazard and Marquez Valdes-Scantling.
Mm-hmm.
Can you count on that going forward? And number 3, you mentioned it. The Vikings on paper sound like a bad matchup. The Vikings with inexperienced cornerbacks, I mean, significantly inexperienced cornerbacks, and no Danielle Hunter, are not the Vikings that we have been accustomed to seeing for the past few years. And I'm bullish on the idea they will not be that same defense going forward. I want to see it again.
Yeah.
Like, crush me. Okay, and if he does it again next week, then maybe Monday we're saying, all right, Field, like, time to get him back into your weekly top 8 quarterbacks. But no rushing value, or minimal rushing value yesterday. 4 passing. This is his first time in 17 games with Matt LaFleur as his head coach that I have thought to myself, that was just utterly ridiculous.
He was great. He was a bad man. But, I mean, look, last year we saw it, Week 7 against Oakland. He had 43.8 fantasy points. He
so
had a
second
monster
time.
No, but
I've seen it.
he's had a couple of monster games, and then just, and then whatever. Listen, there were some blown coverages there. Into the second half, they got a long touchdown as well. So again, I'm with you. He played awesome. Don't want to take anything away from it. And I was on SportsCenter Sunday morning. And I did my love-hate segment, and he was my hate quarterback.
Right.
So I have a question for you.
Okay.
Should I pull the Skip Bayless? Because that's what Skip loves to do. Skip loves to do the, I trashed him and now he went off, so I'm to credit. So is it me? Like, should I take credit for Aaron Rodgers' resurgence?
I mean, I'm very positive he listened to the podcast.
I mean,
so and
there
he
you
watches
go.
SportsCenter ardently.
There you go. You're
so
welcome, America. That's
you
what
go.
I did.
No, mostly
there you go.
Packers
You're
fan.
welcome. I
You're
got
welcome,
Aaron
Packers
Rodgers
fan.
back to
There
being
you
a
go.
fantasy superstar.
Thirsty Kyle,
There
our
you go.
loyal Packers fan, he can thank Matthew for that.
Do appreciate it.
There you go.
Yeah,
All right, so yesterday the Eagles.
I will say they have a pretty good schedule coming up. The Packers do. So
maybe he proves us all wrong.
Yes.
So maybe we need to put.
Absolutely could.
He's not like a waiver wire ad. We just need to adjust our rankings accordingly.
Will Marquez Valdes-Scantling and Allen Lazard make your waiver wire column tomorrow?
They will not.
They will not.
They will not. No, because here's the thing. Like, how are you
Eyebrow
prioritizing
raised.
them?
What?
How are you prioritizing them?
I would have put MVS over Alan Lazard.
Okay. How many times have we seen? I want to see it twice. Like
Fair.
that's as I said.
That's
My
fair.
week 1 goal is to sort through what is noise and what is news.
Wow.
As in,
That's
like,
a good segment.
Yeah.
We should do that on the TV show.
correct.
Yeah.
Noise or news. Call it noise or news.
Noise or news.
Tight end controversy in Philadelphia? Not quite, but Zach Ertz had 3 catches, 18 yards, and a touchdown yesterday, including a drive opening or an opening drive touchdown. And you're thinking to yourself, like, yep, Zach Ertz, who wants a new contract, is going to go crazy today. Well, 3 for 18 is still, like, with 1 touchdown, with the way he's being
Had one
covered.
big play. Yep.
But Dallas Goedert yesterday went nuts, Matthew. 8 catches, 101 yards, and a touchdown. And I'll be the first to tell you that these two players look a lot alike, both from their build, the fact that they wear 88 and 86, 2 jersey numbers that look very similar. They even wear the same arm sleeve. Dallas Goedert caught a long touchdown yesterday, and I'm sitting there thinking to myself, yes, Zach Ertz again. Actually, it was Dallas Goedert. But so I don't think this is about knocking Zach Ertz. He's still going to be a weekly lineup fixture for me. I think the question is, can you have 2 tight ends from the same offense every week be considered top 10 locks? And did Dallas Goedert yesterday show us he should be?
Yes and yes.
Okay.
So you start, and when you start to think about the situation that the 0-1 Philadelphia Eagles are in,
Who did they lose to?
they lost to the Washington football team.
Oh.
NBD, but if you look at the NFC East standings as of this moment, Cowboys 0-1, Eagles 0-1, Giants 0-0.
Yeah.
The Washington football team, the first place Washington football team, 1-0.
That's right.
I'm just saying. I mean, the standings are the standings. I'm just saying, like, it is what it is.
They're facts.
You know?
Yeah, you can't
I mean,
deny.
you know,
You can't discredit facts.
I'm just saying, like, it ain't bragging if it's true, right?
Correct.
I'm just saying. There you go. In the season now. Somebody in the season
No,
now.
don't make that, 'cause
no,
you can't make that joke
Not the
this
year to
year.
make this
Yeah.
joke. Here's what I mean. Like, so Jalen Reagor was banged up. Obviously, Alshon Jeffrey didn't play in this game, and their offensive line was decimated. So I don't know. No, they have some real injuries on the offensive line. I don't think it suddenly gets better tomorrow. But they also, by the way, they didn't have a run game. You know what I mean? So Miles Sanders wasn't in this game as well. What does this offense look like when they get Reagor back to full speed? He played. He caught the one big pass. But when they get Reagor back, when they get Miles Sanders back, if they hopefully, you know, maybe they get Lane Johnson back on that offensive line, like what happens when they're a little bit more in full strength? Having said all that, they love 2 tight end sets.
Yeah.
I can tell you, having talked to people on the staff of that team, they love, with a capital L, Dallas Goedert. It's no disrespect to Zach Ertz, because Zach Ertz is awesome, but they love Dallas Goedert, who I think people forget last year was tight end 10 in total points. Like, he was a top 10 fantasy tight end last year.
Yeah.
And I think his role is only going to expand. And I understand why Zach Ertz wants to get paid, but I think one of the reasons why Howie Roseman and the Eagles organization is sort of like, hang on, is because of what they have in Dallas Goedert.
Who'd you talk to on the staff? I won't tell anybody.
Let me tell you. Who's the
the
Philly
mascot?
fanatic?
The Philly
Yeah,
fanatic?
who's the Philly fanatic?
You talked to
Who's the-
Gritty. Who you're thinking of?
You know, I was trying to think of, like, who's the weird one for the Flyers? Who's the
Gritty.
Yeah, Gritty.
Gritty,
Yeah.
that's what I'm talking about. It's like I couldn't think of it. I couldn't.
Just to chime
Anyway,
in on one
it's
last
a
thing
Monday
here,
morning,
Matthew.
guys.
No, but I will just say this, is that, like, you're right. When those other players come back, there's more mouths to feed, so to speak. I think it's going to keep up for Dallas Goedert. I think
too.
it's just like, if you were to stack the Eagles pass catchers, 1 to 8, number 1 is Zach Ertz.
Yeah,
Number 2 is Dallas Goedert.
I would agree.
And, like,
with that.
that's not even a slight against somebody like Jalen Reagor, who had a huge play for them yesterday, or other talented guys. Dallas Goedert is just a really good player.
Yes. If we were saying news or noise, it's news.
It's news.
Dallas Goedert should be especially anyone that lost Blake Jarwin or just needs a tight end that was disappointed with
Third
whatever.
player on the waiver column.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Austin Eckler, Matthew, because what was the beauty of Austin Eckler last season was that even in a year when he had, I believe, 136 total rushes,
Right.
90-plus catches last year.
Mm-hmm.
Yesterday, he had 19 carries. I don't know that he's ever done that before.
Right.
But he had 1 catch for 3 yards,
Yeah.
less than 10 fantasy points yesterday. Josh Kelly added 12 carries, 60 yards, and a touchdown. Looked really good.
Yeah.
What do we make of Austin Eckler's usage yesterday? Is this scaring you? Is this just a game script thing? Is this what happens when you have Tyrod Taylor as your quarterback? Because we had a lot of questions about this offense going into the year.
Here's what it tells me. Make an offer. Make an offer for Austin Eckler.
Okay.
I would, like, think about what you just said. He got 19 carries.
Right.
He got 19 carries, caught 1 ball. Okay. Clyde Edwards-Helaire on Thursday night didn't catch one ball, and by the way, didn't get into the end zone, and we're all like, this is the greatest thing ever. Oh, it's going to come. The pass catching will come. It's an Andy Reid offense. Like,
yeah, Lair did score, but just before the people get mad.
Well, but like he didn't get into the end zone for the second time. Like, he got a bunch of like those goal line carries that didn't work out. But my point is like, if I had told you before the season Austin Eckler was going to get 19 carries, where would you have ranked him? I think this is great news. Like, I would make an offer on Austin Eckler. I'm like not worried about it. Like, it's one bad game. Again, from week 5 on last year, once Melvin Gordon came back, Austin Eckler was the 5th best running back in fantasy. And I know the anti-Austin Eckler argument is that he had insane luck on the touchdown receptions. I want to say he had 8 touchdown receptions off the top of my head. And that'll come down. I'm with you. But now if he's going to get more rushing work, I just don't believe that you sign Austin Eckler to the deal you signed him, and knowing how good of a pass catcher he is, that all of a sudden he's going to go through a season where he's catching 1 or 2 balls a game. They will look at the film and they'll be like, you know what, we screwed up here.
Matthew, I think this was a game script thing, right? Look, they're in a tussle the entire game. They don't need to throw it a ton. You know who they get in week 2? The Chiefs.
There you go.
You have a 1-week buy low window on Austin Eckler. He's too talented. He's way too good to expect the volume.
I would offer Le'Veon Bell for Austin Eckler, and and if Le'Veon Bell plus something, like
for Austin Eckler.
For
if somebody
Austin,
can execute that trade, send it to us immediately.
I'm just saying. I would say that Austin Eckler. Not only am I not worried, I'm excited about the opportunity with Austin Eckler. All that said, Josh Kelly's going to be a thing.
Yeah,
Josh Kelly is for real. He's on. If you go back and look at my 10 list of 10, or you look at any of my preseason stuff, he was on others receiving votes and love hate. My preseason love hate. Like, I really like Josh Kelly. I wasn't worried about Justin Jackson, and I think you can see why. Like, he's going to be good. Josh Kelly's going to be really good.
We're going to always compare Tom Brady and Cam Newton. That's how the world works. I'm going to take the Tom Brady part of this analysis quickly, and then we can get into Cam Newton after that. Tom Brady yesterday, 239 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He did have a rushing touchdown, so he gets you 20.5 fantasy points.
Yeah.
If you're disappointed in that, then you have way too high expectations in life. If Tom Brady struggles to the eye, which to the eye he did struggle yesterday relative to massive expectations, next Sunday, then we can start talking about this. But if you're concerned by a 20.5 point effort against maybe the best team they'll play this year, maybe.
Right.
Do they play the Chiefs? I don't know if they play the Chiefs. But if they do, second best team.
It was Daniel's job to memorize the schedule.
Okay, gotcha. Anyways, one of the best teams they'll play all year. Like, reset your expectations. Let's talk about Cam Newton, though.
And by the way,
with a banged-up Mike Evans.
I was going to say, Mike Evans running around out there on one hamstring, and the running back situation is still unsettled. I thought this was interesting, though. I think that as long as we're talking about that team, I thought this was interesting. As long as we're talking about buy low, this might seem crazy. I want to see if you agree with me, though. Again, on Fantasy Football Now, Sunday morning, Jeff Darlington talked up the fact that they really like Leonard Fournette, even though you didn't see it on the field. I think people might be like, "Oh, Ronald Jones is going to be the guy." I actually think Leonard Fournette might be a buy low as well.
Interesting name right there to note. He did not play great yesterday. He didn't play that much yesterday, but it's a long season. He's only been there for about, 10 days or so?
Yeah.
Cam Newton, back, baby. Cam Newton finished with 25.7 fantasy points yesterday, 155 passing yards. That part, 15 for 19, whatever. 75 rushing yards for 2 touchdowns.
Dude.
The most rushing yards by a Patriots quarterback since 1977. That was when Steve Grogan ran for 81 yards. And Matthew, if you think about it, there might have been some points left on the field. The Patriots probably should have won this game more convincingly. N'Keal Harry was about 6 inches away from the end zone, and then he fumbled. And as we talk about that rule, it's still dumb, right? You fumble into the end zone as an offensive player, and the defense gets the ball as a touchback. Feels weird. Anyways.
Does feel weird.
That's one of those rules that will probably never be changed, but it should be changed.
Right.
This day could have been a lot better because you know what happens if it's 1st and goal as opposed to the Dolphins ball, 1st and 10 going out? It's Cam Newton scoring his 3rd rushing touchdown, right? He actually came very close to a 3rd rushing touchdown on a separate drive yesterday. Is Cam back? We were bullish on Cam coming into this season. Were we bullish enough?
I don't think we were.
Yeah.
Hey, look, the question about Cam is not, is Cam good? Cam's good. Cam's really good. Cam looked like Cam, like Superman Cam.
Yeah.
Like, that's what he looked like yesterday. And it was great to see. It was awesome. And I 2 things I would say. They're playing the Dolphins. So, like, let's level set. And I know there was a lot of people like, Brady lost and Cam won and blah. Stop it, Patriots fans. Like, I mean, Brady played the Saints. Cam played the Dolphins. Like, you know what I mean? Like, Cam was great. Enjoy your victory. That's great. But, like, I don't know. What I would say here is that Cam looked nothing short of fantastic. As we talked about all the preseason, Josh McDaniels is going to use Cam Newton and use what he does well. So I don't think that's a mistake. I think, again, as we sort of talked about coming into the season, the Patriots running back you want is Cam Newton. Like, that's the guy that's going to lead the team, I think, in carries and rushing yards.
Maybe not carries, but rushing yards, yes.
Yeah,
I mean, sorry,
maybe
rushing
not
touchdowns.
carries.
Yes.
I will say rushing touchdowns. Certainly
My guess. Yeah.
Fantasy points from rushing. How about that?
That's
I bet
fair.
you he leads the team
Yeah,
in
I agree.
fantasy points from rushing. So I definitely think Cam is back. The concern, of course, is not his talent. Is can he stay healthy over the course of a year if he's running as much as he is? He's not going to be playing the Dolphins every single week.
Yeah, well, Cam was asked about that this morning on the Greg Hill Show on WEI, which is a local station in Boston. And I think his answer sort of was reflective of a guy who's tired of being asked the same question. Like, hey, can you really keep it up for 16 weeks of rushing the football 15 times? He's like, I get asked that every year. And, like, first of all, it's not my choice. I don't call the plays. Second of all, like, I'm built for this. I'm a competitor. So I actually think the Patriots will adopt a comparable style of play.
Sure.
Every week the game script allows them. And I think the big thing that unlocks this is that the Patriots need to be in close games for Cam to be running a ton. That goes for any quarterback, right? Lamar Jackson is not able to run a ton when he's down 16 points against the Titans last year in the playoffs, right?
Right.
If you believe in the Patriots and you look at their schedule, like, there might be a couple of weeks, like they play Kansas City in week 4, maybe next week against Seattle, but maybe Kansas City in week 4 is the real game where you're like, all right, well, if you think they might lose by 10 or 12 or 14 or 18 points, maybe Cam's value goes down a little bit. But Cam Newton feels like, I don't know about set it and forget it yet, because you may have drafted a quarterback higher than him that is set it and forget it, but he's close to it. Let me ask you this. If you were to, right now, and let's put you on the spot here, and I know that you could probably make a case both ways, but just initial instinct, redrafting right now, Cam Newton or Deshaun Watson, who did not have a stellar day on Thursday night? I know.
Still going with Deshaun Watson, but it's a conversation.
Yeah, interesting. Sort of a fun, sort of what if.
I mean, I'll
right?
tell you this. I think I'd probably. I had Tom Brady over Cam Newton. I think I would reverse him.
Interesting.
I would have Cam Newton over Carson Wentz, over Drew Brees, over Tom Brady. I think if we were redrafting from today for the rest of the season.
Yeah. These are always tough. I want to protect us and just say it's week 1. We overreact a ton. Stephania, though, I want to get you in the mix here on Cam, because I know you've been asked a lot about Cam because of the back-to-back injury situations he dealt with. What's your sense? I mean, how do you feel about Cam's prospects of making it through this season?
I think they're as good as ever. And the two things that I was really watching for were clearly around his foot and his shoulder. The foot issue, which was the most recent injury, was a problem where he had no confidence planting and getting off that foot to be able to throw, and it ended up causing him to sail the ball quite a bit. People assumed that it was his shoulder that was the problem. It actually had more to do with the fact that he could not put weight through his foot properly. So it changed everything about his style. You saw him do some trademark things yesterday. You saw him be aggressive with running when they were in the red zone, which is something that they're going to count on him for, and you like to see that. You also saw that he was not afraid to take the contact. I think he's being smarter. I want to go back and watch the tape where I can see every single play. But one of the big issues that put his shoulder at risk was diving with his arm outstretched in an awkward situation when he didn't have to. And I didn't see that yesterday. I'm going to go look again. But these are all really strong indicators that he can play and play like this for a full season.
Field, I got a question for you about this.
All right, Daniel, what do you got?
In 2011, Cam Newton set the record for most rushing touchdowns by a quarterback with 14.
Yeah.
Do you think that's possible this year?
Oh, man, possible, yes.
Obviously
because, right,
possible,
Yeah,
right?
I'm not counting on it, no.
You don't think so?
No,
You think
I
he gets
mean,
double-digit touchdowns? Like, if you just like a gut. This is all just gut.
Yeah,
You
if
think
you
he
give
gets
it the
double?
I think he gets 8 more the rest of the
I
season?
think yes.
Yeah, 8 more the rest of the season.
I'd say yes.
I would say yes as well.
Yeah, I mean, but you know what, guys? Like this,
They get Miami again. They get the Jets twice.
Sure, it's possible.
I mean,
yeah, I'll go. I think 10 is a reasonable number for Cam. We'll keep an eye on it, obviously. But Cam Newton, good to see him back because he's one of the great fantasy players we have ever seen at the quarterback spot. So, whatever you want to protect, nobody has more ways to help keep you safe than ADT. You can customize an ADT security package to help protect your home in a way that works for you and your budget. Whether you want just the basics or all the bells and whistles, ADT can work with you to customize a system to help protect your home. HD video doorbells, indoor and outdoor cameras, smart lights, smart locks, smart thermostats, flood sensors, and fire and carbon monoxide detectors that are connected to 24/7 monitoring, all controlled by the sound of your voice or the ADT app. All ADT products are rigorously tested to deliver the quality you expect from ADT, the most trusted name in security. Plus, ADT expert installers average 10 plus years of experience. ADT wants you to be happy with your service. That's why they provide one of the best money-back guarantees from a national security provider in the business. Protect now, pay later with low, flexible monthly payments to fit your budget. Support ADT because they support us.
You know, now more than ever, we have to look out for each other and count on each other. Marathon wants you to know that you can count on them for high-quality, top-tier gasoline. Marathon gasolines are formulated with STP additives. They keep your vehicle running at peak performance by optimizing fuel economy and removing those ugly deposit buildups and reducing your emissions. And right now, you can get 5 cents off of every gallon every day with Make It Count rewards from Marathon. Plus, you can earn points for additional savings on fuel, airfare, hotels, and more. This is definitely a deal that you can count on. It's quick and easy to join. Just download the free Make It Count app or go to makeitcount.com and, makeitcount.com/radio and start saving today. This offer is only valid at participating Marathon stations. Remember, wherever you need to go, be safe. The people behind Marathon are with you all the way.
I was with you, Daniel.
I appreciate it. I mean, sometimes it just starts happening. You can't get out of it. What are you going to do?
For those that are watching right now on the video stream, you may have seen a graphic that flashed. It was a reminder of some notable performance from week one that can sort of serve as like, hey, a little bit of humble pie, right? Things go crazy in week one that either don't persist for positive or negative reasons. Marcus Mariota was awesome last year in week one. Aaron Jones had just 4.9 fantasy points. Sammy Watkins went crazy with nearly 47 fantasy points. He finished with just about 7 fantasy points per week from then on out. John Ross, of course, 35 fantasy points in week one. He finished as wide receiver 40. So always remember that week one can be fool's gold. It can also be predictive. It's our job to sort of sort through and give you our best estimates of what mattered. Along those lines, let's go to the running backs by committee, Matthew, because there were a bunch of them that we were focused in on, and some of them that we didn't expect to be quite as opaque. It's a nice fancy word right there. Yeah. Let's talk about the Browns, though, first. It means the opposite of clear.
Yeah, not see-through.
Yeah. So let's start with the Browns, Matthew, and we talked about Nick Chubb earlier on, a little bit like some scary signs. Nick Chubb got the first 3 touches from the Browns, the first series for Cleveland. He finished with 5.6 fantasy points.
Yep.
Kareem Hunt had more carries and more touches than Nick Chubb. Do you attribute this more to the fact that the Browns were getting humiliated and they needed the back that's a better pass catcher, or is this a potential sign that this might be much more of a work share than even we expected?
This is a committee. This is a full-blown split down the middle, running back by committee. Kareem Hunt actually got a couple of goal line carries as well. I just don't know. I haven't had a chance to go back and watch that film yet. I don't know if that's because he was just in the series at the time and they just kept it going, or they specifically brought him in. I think he was just in the series at the time. I apologize that I don't know that just yet. But what I will tell you is that, these are guys that, Kareem Hunt played 33 snaps. Nick Chubb played 33 snaps. They each played 49% of the snaps, in terms of their snap share, right? Nick Chubb got 10 carries. Kareem Hunt got 13. Kareem Hunt actually had more touches, but to your point, they were down in a big way. To me, the most concerning thing here is that Baker Mayfield looked awful. I get it. It's a tough matchup. It's a tough matchup with the Ravens. But Baker Mayfield just missed easy throws. He missed wide open guys. He just looked lost out there. And so while that is a concern for Beckham and Landry going forward, and let's see what happens when they're not playing the Ravens, okay? But I do think that if I'm Kevin Stefanski and I'm looking at the film from that game in terms of what I saw at least, I'm like, oh boy. I'm handing it to Nick Chubb. I'm handing it to Nick Chubb, and then I'm handing it to Kareem Hunt, and then I'm handing it to Nick Chubb again, and then I'm going to hand it to Kareem Hunt. And then maybe I'll have Baker Mayfield throw a bubble screen to Jarvis Landry and let Jarvis Landry throw it downfield. I'm just he looked bad. I think this is going to be more run heavy of an offense just because, I don't know what your impressions were, Field, but I was just like, good God, what happened?
I didn't expect them to win this game, Matthew, but I expected the Browns to look respectable.
Yeah.
Pathetic. The most woeful performance that we saw in week 1 belonged to the Cleveland Browns. So surprised.
I was having an argument with a colleague and I was defending Dwayne Haskins before the game started, and I was just saying, like, I think it's too early to bail on Dwayne Haskins, multiple coaches last year, et cetera, et cetera.
I know where you're going. It's not too early.
And the colleague said to me, he's a former NFL player that works here. He said, Dwayne Haskins or Baker Mayfield, who would you take?
Right.
And this
Good
is again
question
before,
by Daniel.
right? I mean, but huh?
Nothing. Keep
Yeah,
going.
yeah. I'm just like, and we both agreed that, like, you would probably still take Baker, but after those 2 games, you're like, ooh, like, anyway, I'm just.
I feel you, but let's.
So the takeaways fantasy wise, look, it's one bad game, so let's see what happens next week.
Yeah.
I don't think you're starting Baker Mayfield. I think you're still going to have to start the wide receivers, right? But
Let's talk about the backs, though.
But specific to the running backs here, I think you probably overpaid for Nick Chubb. I think you probably got a value in Kareem Hunt. But assuming this offense is better than what we saw on Sunday, and I believe it will be, I believe both guys are going to be viable RB2s this year. So you probably drafted as Nick Chubb as an RB1. Like, I still think when they get in close, more often than not, Nick Chubb's going to be the guy. I still think Nick Chubb is a talented running back field. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not ready to just be like, oh, well, there you go. Like, the Browns are very lucky in that they have 2 very talented running backs. So this is a committee. But you know what? Nick Chubb can still be a very viable fantasy running back, just much more of an RB2 than an RB1 when he's splitting time with Kareem Hunt.
Yeah, I'm with listen, it's not perfect, ideal, but hopefully this is a 1-game sample size. And they play on Thursday night against a much less superior Bengals defense. So we'll see whether or not things shake themselves out. Let's go to the Bucs, though. Daniel was just talking about this, and you mentioned maybe Leonard Fournette is a buy low candidate. Well, he has just 2.9 fantasy points yesterday. He barely played. It felt like this was mostly Ronald Jones, but look at the eventual snaps here. Ronald Jones plays 30. LaShawn McCoy plays 24. Leonard Fournette plays 8. How quickly can this turn around, Matthew?
I think soon. They lost.
Yeah.
I mean, like, they got to do something on off. Like, they're not going to be happy. Now, understand, they play the Panthers this week.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you just saw Josh Jacobs run all over. Like, again, I think, as we talked about with Eckler, I think the buy low window on Leonard Fournette, and this can be more of a committee, but I think there's a chance that Leonard Fournette has a multi-touchdown game next week.
Right.
Or Ronald Jones, right? I mean, it depends, but I was encouraged by what Jeff Darlington said on Fantasy Football Now, just talking up Leonard Fournette and how excited the Buccaneers are to have him in camp. I think his usage was more a result of he just got there than a lack of confidence in Fournette. I'm not the biggest Fournette guy, but his value is higher than what it is.
Who is it Daniel? Who's the biggest Fournette guy, right?
It's probably me, for the record. And I was watching that Sunday show. Field Your Drip looked great, by the way. I want you to know that.
Daniel?
I was also excited.
A lot of drip.
I was also excited about Jeff Darlington's comments about Fournette, but once I saw Ronald Jones run with, like, this drive and determination, it made me a little less, like, maybe Bruce Arians was not, like, lying to us all along, and I'm not trying to, like, give Bruce Arians the win here, but, like, Ronald Jones, like, ran like a man possessed yesterday when he got time out there.
So here's what I think it levels. Here's what I think it level sets. I
Bring
think
it
both
to
of
me.
you are on good ideas here. Have good ideas here. Is that the Bucs had massive expectations this year. If they get on track and they look like a Super Bowl contender, then I think it's possible one of these backs ends up being a fantasy star. But if they melt and they're like 2-4. Or even 2-3 after their first 5 games, then this might all look really ugly. Like, the only pathway for Leonard Fournette to have 12 touchdowns this year is to A, get in the lineup in a hurry, and B, for the Bucs to just be clinical on offense. Yesterday, they were not that. It's 1 game, so we're not going to overreact. But I think that, it's if we, as I said earlier with Tom Brady, if the same problems persist against an incredibly inexperienced Panthers defense next week, the radar is way up, but I still think we have a ways to go on this backfield. The Ravens is interesting, though. The Ravens yesterday. J.K. Dobbins had 2 touchdowns. I believe it was 7 carries for 22 yards and 2 touchdowns. So not a huge day, but 2 touchdowns counts. Mark Ingram, 2.9 fantasy points, Matthew. You were a J.K. Dobbins train conductor throughout the preseason. More encouraged.
You guys, there's still room. Jump on board. You guys get on the bandwagon.
So this is sort of the inverse, though, of the Browns, right? Is that Is J.K. Dobbins playing 23 snaps to Mark Ingram's 20 because this game was over by halftime? Right. And they're saying, hey, Mark Ingram's the veteran. We don't need Mark Ingram out there for 18 snaps in the second half, and we're up by 20 points. Or is this more, maybe there's going to be a changing of the guard pretty quickly in Baltimore?
I think there could be. The weird thing is, for me, is that despite how talented that Ravens offense is, I don't think you can start either one of these guys. You can't start Mark Ingram. I mean, in a blowout win, guy got under 3 fantasy points.
Right.
He got vultured at the goal line twice by J.K. Dobbins. I can't imagine feeling confident at all about starting Mark Ingram, right, until you see it. But then you're like, well, am I starting J.K. Dobbins? Am I starting like he got those 2 touchdowns, but otherwise, didn't get a ton of usage, and trying to count on the touchdowns. It is the Ravens, so easily, if there's a team to count on easy touchdowns coming, it would be Baltimore.
Yeah.
But it feels weird to say for one of the best offenses in football. But I feel like until we get a little bit more clarity, that you can't feel confident starting any running back from Baltimore.
I'll keep Mark Ingram as a low-end RB2 in the subsequent weeks until things are a little bit clearer. They play the Texans in week 2, and as we saw last week, you can run on the Houston Texans. Let's talk about the Lions, because this is where things...
they were able to run on the Browns, too, somewhat. They had their way with the Browns.
That kind of was the one that they couldn't do, was run yesterday, other than Lamar.
They had their way with the Browns.
Right. So they threw the ball brilliantly.
Right.
Let's talk about the Lions, Matthew. And I went back and forth on whether or not to include Adrian Peterson on the waiver wire column for tomorrow. And he ends up yesterday playing the second most snaps amongst the 3 running backs. DeAndre Swift plays the most at 30. Peterson plays the second most at 23. Kerryon Johnson plays 19. But Adrian Peterson had 17 total touches on 23 carries. So what that's indicative of that
caught like 2 balls.
Got 3 passes.
3 passes.
So he, I believe, over the past 4 seasons, or since the start of 2017, has just 1 game with more than 4 catches. So the fact that he got 3 was impressive. But he also got 4 out of the 5 red zone touches yesterday. I'm just calling this right now. It was him out of the gates yesterday. This has got to change soon, though, right? Don't you think this changes, or do you think they stay?
I think this is a 3-headed monster, and I would just like to take a moment here to go to Secret Squirrel, Daniel Dopp. 30 seconds. How do you feel?
Matthew, as somebody that's been a fan of a team that's been really terrible for a long time, speaking of you.
Yeah, no, I know.
I want to know, does it get any better ever? Do I have a future to look up to? Am I excited about anything? Do I feel like there is hope on the other side of this seemingly endless valley of despair that has been Lions fandom for what seems like my entire life? And I look at you as a Washington football fan. You've at least had some winning in your past.
3 Super Bowls, sure.
So I'm at a point now where it's like, what do you do here? I just want to be excited. My blood, sweat, and tears for this team. Yeah. But man, oh man, my biggest takeaway, in all honesty, is I hope that the team rallies around DeAndre Swift and picks that kid up and lets him know that moment will not define his career. Because that's, that kid
could, though.
It could, and I really hope that it doesn't. I really hope that it doesn't.
Depends
for
on the
those
fan
that
base.
missed it, he had an opportunity to win the game with a catch in the end zone. Right through the wickets. Adrian Peterson.
He dropped it. He hit him in the hands.
What is that? Yeah, right through the
tough.
wickets.
It was tough.
Adrian Peterson after the game said what Daniel just said, is that my message to him was, don't let this define you. Stephania, you want to get in here on these Lions running backs. What more do you have to add?
I do. I think you should also keep in mind that DeAndre Swift had been limited by a hip injury for a couple of weeks. Remember, it was undisclosed when they didn't have to report it, and then this week limited in practice. So he didn't get all the practice time that you would hope for on an already different season coming in as a rookie. And I still thought that his workload was pretty decent, keeping all of that in mind. So number one, it shows that he's healthy. If you're looking for silver linings, Daniel, Matthew Stafford looked healthy. DeAndre Swift, as running back, looked healthy. The one I'd be more concerned about going forward is Kerryon Johnson.
Okay, worth noting there, Stephania's insights, potential workload.
I was just going to say I agree with Stephania. Kerryon Johnson's unusable at this point.
Yeah. It's too bad.
And I don't. If there's going to be a guy that emerges, it's most likely DeAndre Swift.
Yep.
But until I think it's going to be a 3-headed running back by committee, and also keep in mind, obviously they didn't have Kenny Golladay, so their offense didn't look like what we expect it to look like when they get Golladay back. Listen, and they should have won the game. Right? No jokes aside. They made a really nice comeback, and should have caught or they were up big. The Bears made a big comeback, and then they still had a chance to win the game.
It's almost time for the closing bell. So let's get to one more backfield here, Matthew, and that's the Rams. Who played on Sunday night, and Malcolm Brown took this job and looked really good last night. He had 18 carries. That was more than Cam Akers and Darrell Henderson combined. Akers had 14. So what it felt like to me, Matthew, was that this is a two-man backfield, not a three-man backfield. We thought it could be a three-man backfield with all of them in the mix. But if I had told you it was a two-man backfield, many may have suspected, oh, Darrell Henderson and Cam Akers doing it in tandem. No, Malcolm Brown's a thing.
100% a thing. Because here's the thing. Not only did he get a ton of carries, I think he probably got the start initially because veteran and he's been around.
Deference, yeah.
But he took, he was the best running back out there. He looked significantly better than Cam Akers yesterday. Henderson didn't get enough run to really tell, but he didn't do anything special in the couple of touches he got. And keep in mind, when they were running out the clock at the end, when they had the ball and they were trying to keep the ball away from Dallas, who got the ball? It was Malcolm Brown. They were running out the clock with Malcolm Brown. When they got in close, they were giving it to Malcolm Brown. So it was in high leverage situations when they trust Malcolm Brown, and he looked good and he delivered. And so, Sean McVay has been saying, it's going to be a committee unless somebody takes the ball and runs with it, like a little bit of a hot hand approach. This is Malcolm Brown's job until it's not. And so I assume he's going to be the number one pick on your waiver wire because he should be.
He is number one on the waiver wire is Malcolm Brown, available in over 92% of leagues. Stephania, we do have two games tonight, and there's an injury to monitor. What is the latest on Broncos wide receiver Courtland Sutton for those that maybe were holding out hope that he could play tonight?
Right. Just a quick reminder, with the shoulder injury late last week, he was at practice on Saturday, but he kept his arm down the entire time. Didn't look great from what I'm told. From the things I'm hearing, the latest I'm hearing, I would be very surprised if he does go tonight. And if he does, he will be limited. There's no question.
All right. Well, plan to make other plans for Courtland Sutton. Hopefully you did so yesterday, unless you insured him on your roster with someone like Jerry Jeudy or perhaps one of the available wide receivers for the other three teams playing tonight. Let's close things out with trivia, and I got a feeling Stephania is going to nail this one. Do we have Kyle's mic, or is he off mic today?
I got you covered, Field.
Okay, Kyle, the Geico trivia question. We pass it along to you.
All right, we got two Monday night games tonight. Since 2010, Pittsburgh leads the NFL in Monday night football win percentage. Over that stretch of the other three teams in action tonight, I want to know who has the highest Monday night win percentage. You got A, the New York Giants, B, the Tennessee Titans, or C, the Denver Broncos.
Okay, the options are A, New York Giants, B, Tennessee Titans, C, Denver Broncos. We are pressed on time, so I will ante up first. I'm going to go with B, the Tennessee Titans. I even guessed the winning percentage of 62.5. Or I guess
like
0.625.
Feels like someone saw the question ahead of time and looked. I went with the New York Football Giants.
Okay, and Stephania Bell, who did you go with?
Well, I went with the Broncos. But
No way.
Oh, someone's going to be right then. Kyle Soppe, we pass it back to you.
I think
Who
it's
has
Matthew.
the correct answer
I think
here?
Matthew gets it.
Field Yates gets it right, and Field Yates almost gets bonus points, 66.7 win percentage. So he's right there.
Oh, come on.
I'm just saying. You
Job
gotta
well done.
Go with your instincts there. All right, so just a reminder that we have two games tonight.
Tighten up.
Tighten up. Good luck to all of our colleagues that are they're making their ESPN Monday Night Football debut, as in Steve Levy, Brian Greasy, and Louis Riddick, or those that are hanging out with us for one night on the NFL side. Herbie and Fowler are two great college football faces.
100%.
What do you got? What do you got, Daniel? You were pointed to yourself.
Yeah, we're going to do. I want to give you guys three quick rapid-fire questions to close this out, all right?
Okay, here we go.
Russell Gage had 12 targets, 9 for 144, 20.4 fantasy points. Is Russell Gage a thing in that Falcons offense?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
Not yet. He threw for 450 yards. I don't think that happens every week.
Hayden Hurst, only 3 for 38, that same offense where Matt Ryan threw over 50 times. Concerns on Hayden Hurst after his first game?
Not yet.
Not yet. Seahawks played tight ends really, really well.
Okay. OBJ, 3 for 22. We already talked about this with Baker. How much panic is there on OBJ right now?
A little bit, but not a lot.
Yeah, still got a massive target share.
Yeah.
Baker will be better.
Okay. Robbie Anderson, 6 for 115 and a touchdown with his new quarterback, Teddy Bridgewater, in Carolina. Is Robbie Anderson going to be trending towards flex consideration or higher for you this week?
Maybe, yeah. They play the Bucs.
Yeah, I mean,
Flex
look,
consideration this week.
with his old college coach, right? And that's a team that's going to be down and throwing a lot. So, look, yes, is Robbie Anderson a thing? He is. He had one big play in that game, but that's Robbie Anderson's game.
Yeah.
So, yes, I think he's a prototypical wide receiver 3 with upside.
All right, one more here. After a terrible, just unfortunate outing, Jamison Crowder at least, 7 for 115 and a touchdown. Are you buying Jamison Crowder rest of the season?
Well, we liked him where he was being
We
drafted,
did.
right? Wide receiver 41, and he had 69 yards of those 115 on one catch. That was the touchdown. He had, 22 catches against the Bills in 2 games last year. The Jets are going to need him because they looked terrible
They're
yesterday.
not going to be able to run the ball. So how are they going to run the ball? They're going to run the ball with like short passes, and Crowder's going to have a massive target share. And so, yes, I'm buying Crowder. Love it.
Tuesday, you know the drill. We're back tomorrow with waiver wire talk and so much more, including the Monday Night Football recaps and any other news that we might get. For Stephania, for Daniel, for Matthew, on Field, we are back tomorrow.
Yeah, brand new episode of the Fantasy Show on ESPN Plus coming out tomorrow morning. Be sure to check that out. Follow us all on social media. You'll find us. And watch the games tonight. Enjoy it. Peace out.